Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be talking to you about the top 5 reasons why I love my CBR500 from Honda, whether or not you should buy one if you're in the market. I'll be talking about affordability, if it's a practical bike, and basically all of my favorite things about the bike summarized in one video. I just got the stock exhaust on here. The rest of the bike is pretty much stock as well. If you're wondering if this is a practical bike, whether it's an intermediate or a stepping stone type of bike you're looking at, or potentially you're brand new to riding and you're considering this as your first bike, if you're moderately risk averse and careful, this would be a really good first bike for that, because starting off with a really small bike, you might find that you'll outgrow it relatively quickly. In my case, this was purchased as my second motorcycle, coming from a Honda CBR500R, and I only owned it for a short amount of time. I would say I had initially thought I wouldn't grow out of a 250cc, but you know, of course, in many cases that does happen, especially if you're living in North America. Point number 1 being that it's a very practical intermediate bike to step right into, as well as a bike you can potentially start on. So that's point number 1. Point number 2, this is a fantastic commuter bike to get to work on, get to school on, and I knew exactly what I was getting into before purchasing this bike. So starting off with its seat height, I'm a pretty short rider, as you guys know. I'm about 5'6", 140 pounds. Finding the proper seat height on a lot of bikes is a little bit tricky for me. However, this bike feels really good at that just around 30.7 inches. I feel pretty comfortable on it. I'm not flat footing it by any means, but pretty much the majority of my foot is both sides is able to get down. You should be riding with just your left foot down at stoplights anyways. The seat is a very comfortable seat. I'm generally pretty happy with Honda's build quality, so seat height is very good, seat comfort is very good as well. And while I'm talking about seats, the pillion seat, based on feedback, is relatively comfortable too. The riding position, so this is something I'm a big fan of as well. With the CBR name, you're not really getting that CBR600 or CBR1000 hunched over, you know, kind of super sport position by any means. You're more so sitting in a relatively natural riding position. So the bars are raised quite a bit higher. They're not super close together, pretty wide. Not quite as wide as a naked bike like an FZ07, but the raised bars with this wider grip and the soft seat makes it a very comfortable riding position to be in. So you're not hunched over or laid back. You're kind of just right in the middle, slightly more aggressive riding position. While you're seated in the bike, in motion, this bike is pretty good with wind deflection as well. So, you know, in the commuter class, it often comes down to naked bikes, but in this case, you kind of have that naked bike feel while having fairings to protect you from the wind, as well as a windshield. So the wind kind of deflects. Instead of hitting you right in the chest, it kind of goes up, sometimes at the top of the helmet, which I prefer much more than absorbing most of that in my torso. Another reason why it's a great commuter is the fantastic fuel economy. Most of my riding is done in the city. I would say 80% city, 20% highway for the most part. And I was so surprised at how good this thing is on gas. I was averaging between 3.3 to 3.7 liters per 100 kilometers, which converts to roughly 60 to 70 miles per gallon. So I was super stoked about that because my commute is only about 15 kilometers, which is about 9 miles or so. But, you know, it really adds up over the summer months, saving that, you know, not having to pay so much on gas. So fuel economy was a big thing, and this is really paired together with the fact that it has a pretty big gas tank. I was able to range about 450 kilometers per tank. If I was doing more city riding, it would be 400, which equals to over 300 miles per tank, which is one of the main reasons why I was drawn to this bike. And even the other 500 class bikes that Honda has, they do hit that 17-ish liter mark for the fuel capacity, except for the Rebel 500, which tops out at 11.2 liters, slightly under 3 US gallons. Other reasons why this is a fantastic commuter bike: it's very reliable, it's very low maintenance, so for the most part it won't leave you stranded with that Honda reliability. It's what they're known for. But the bike overall, everything just feels very smooth on it, and you don't really want a jerky bike, the bike with uneven power delivery when you're commuting, and this bike really has that nice balance between that nice power, but also the ability to be very smooth when you're doing a lot of stop and go traffic. Moving on to point number 3, cost of ownership. Buying the bike up front, if you are looking on the used market, for some of the older ones like the 2013, you can probably find those for around $3,000 to $4,000, and then maybe if you're looking for the newer ones, such as this one, 2016 is when they had the facelift. The one I'm riding today is a 2017. That would be available likely for $4,000 to $45,000 to maybe even $5,000. It's really good price, honestly, for what you're getting. It's just a great all-around bike. I talked about why I love it so much in regards to fuel efficiency, less frequent fill-ups because of that big tank. Insurance is also really cheap. It's not a super sport, not a CBR500R, not a CBR1000, like I said. Let's see here. As you can see here, it's got a decent amount of power, but technically it's not a true sport bike. But insurance is cheap because it's a kind of commuter style standard motorcycle. And a crucial point I'd like to make is that the resale value is really good. It's kind of like that with all Hondas, but lots of great reliable finds on the used market. So when you're buying this and then you're selling it, you won't take that much of a loss. Maybe even you'll break even. As it is a pretty popular bike in North America, offloading it will be relatively straightforward, as well as if you're looking to buy one on the used market, they'd be pretty easy to find. Reason number 4, this 471cc parallel twin engine paired with the Honda 6-speed manual transmission, very versatile, very practical for all sorts of riding conditions. So if you're a city commuter like I am, with the occasional highway long distance trip, this bike will really do it all, especially knowing that you have that 6 gear, highway speeds you can kind of cruise along, adding to its incredible fuel efficiency. This 471cc, it's not the most powerful engine in the world, but I would say it's very balanced. Makes really nice power, it's good torque, very smooth delivery. That's probably the key point. Being, a review catered more for everyday riding and commuting, the smooth delivery of power is crucial because you don't want a bike that shoots you forward when you're going in stop and go traffic. So smooth delivery, I really appreciate that with this bike. Again, with this 471cc parallel twin, this engine really does open you up to a lot of future options. So CBR500 like this one, if you're looking for something sporty that's a practical commuter. If you're looking for more adventure or touring, there's a CB500X, same engine. More around town, looking for a light naked bike, CB500. Rebel 500 if you want the cruiser. So, Honda, I think, really has nailed it in the sense that they have this engine that works, and it works very well, and they offer it on a bunch of different styles of bikes. Similarly, how I look at the Triumph Bonneville with that 900cc. They have it in the Bonneville, they have it in the Street Twin, they have it in the Street Cup, they have it in the Scrambler as well. So my last and final point for this video leans towards the more subjective side of things, but I think the looks of this bike is fantastic. Specifically with the 2016 and newer models, you are getting LED lights at the front and the rear. The front lights are both always on, as opposed to some other older sport bikes where they have 2 headlights in the front but only one comes on for daytime. But alternatively, I know that sometimes having 2 headlights from far away, cars can interpret you as a car, not a motorcycle. Yeah, I really like the lights on this, front and rear. Gauges, I think Honda Really nailed it. It's very practical. You actually have a full fuel indicator, not just a fuel light. You have your tachometer, trip A, trip B, your fuel economy. So since I'm in Canada, it's liters per 100 kilometers, as well as a clock. The 2016 and newer, I will say this, the stock exhaust doesn't look too bad. Of course, it does sound really nice if you get something like a Kaufman. That's a very common aftermarket exhaust that I see on these CBR500s, but stock exhaust for me, especially since I'm commuting every day, I don't want to ring my eardrums at the end of every ride after and before work. From certain angles, it looks certainly like a bigger bike than it actually is. I'm sure for people who are just walking on the street and they're not too familiar with motorcycles, they would probably interpret this as a much bigger bike than it actually is, as it does have a much wider rear tire compared to 250cc or 300cc entry-level sport bikes. If you're thinking about the CBR500, if you've owned one previously, or if you own one now, please let me know in the comments below what some of your favorite things are. And overall, I do think that this is a great bike that you could potentially start on if you're a responsible person, as well as a fantastic bike to jump from something lower CCs, graduating into something with higher CCs as potentially your second bike, or if you're coming back to riding after a long period of time. If you are looking into the bike and you'd like to see some comparables, I would highly recommend checking out the Kawasaki Ninja 400, but keep in mind that the Kawasaki Ninja 400 was released in 2018, so it might not be as popular on the used market compared to the Honda CBR500 that we have here. But some other comparables, if you are looking to go bigger CCs, there's the Ninja 650, the Yamaha FZ6R, but I'm not going to talk about these because these are more comparable to Honda CBR650F. Thanks so much for watching. If you are thinking about the CBR500R and if you have any other questions in regards to it, please drop a comment below. If you have any recommendations or future bikes you want me to review, I'll try my best to get my hands on those bikes. But as always, if there are any ways I could improve, please let me know in the comments. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.